Hey, church family, Pastor Ben here with According to the Word, a daily devotional to offer you encouragement, hope, and guidance from God's Word. Are you triggered? It seems like as Christians, it's pretty easy for us to get triggered these days. I see it all the time on social media or as I talk to other believers in person. We're often upset and angry and frustrated with the culture around us, the people around us. We want things to go back to how they used to be, whatever that means. But should we be triggered as believers? Should we look out at the world around us, the culture that we live in, and allow that to cause us to be so frustrated? Is that where we should focus our attention and energy? Well, interestingly, in Psalm 37, a psalm of David, we're given some instruction here of how we should act and think about the wicked and the evil around us, how we as God's people should act, what our focus should be while we live amongst a people who doesn't believe in God and doesn't honor God. Psalm 37 starts by saying, "Fret not yourself because of evildoers. Fret not yourself." The 2020 translation would be, "Don't get triggered because of evildoers. Be not envious of wrongdoers, for they will soon fade like the grass and wither like the green herb." After this, David goes on then to give some instruction of what we should do, what we should focus on as God's people while we see the wicked around us. Verse 3 says, "Trust in the Lord and do good. Dwell in the land and befriend faithfulness." Trust in the Lord. Trust that regardless of what we see going on around us, He is the Lord. He is sovereign. He is in control. He's not surprised by wickedness and sin. He's actually in control of everything that happens in the universe. Trust in the Lord, and then what should we do? Do good. Oftentimes my kids will come to me, two of them will be fighting or arguing, and I'll ask one of them, "Well, what did you do?" And they'll usually respond, "Well, I did this, but it's because she did this to me, or they did this, or they're being mean." And they want to focus on what the other person is doing rather than their own behavior. And what I often will tell them, I think, is the instruction we're seeing here in Psalm 37 is that we're not to worry about what other people are doing, but to focus on what we are doing. And what we're called to do is to do good. And then he says we are to dwell in the land, obviously speaking to Old Testament Israel as they were in the promised land, and befriend faithfulness. The words here in the original language can mean a variety of things. It could mean feed on faithfulness, that while we live amongst a sinful and wicked culture, we can feed on God's faithfulness. We can remember that He's a faithful God, He's a good God, that although we are the minority and sometimes marginalized, He will remain faithful to us. He will take care of us, He will provide for us. So it can mean feed on faithfulness, but it can also mean strive after faithfulness. We are to remain faithful even though we live amongst an unfaithful culture. Again, we can't worry as much about what others do, but we can focus on what we do. We have a God who's been faithful to us, and now we're called to strive after faithfulness to Him. And so I want to encourage you this week as you are tempted to get triggered, to get angry, to look out at the world and the culture around us and to be just distraught. I want to encourage you to trust in the Lord and do good. Feed on His faithfulness and then strive to be faithful to Him. Focus on that instead of what other people are doing. Tomorrow we'll look at the next verse here in Psalm 37 for some more guidance on how we are to live as God's people in today's culture.